I am Dr. Christina Hibbert, and I'm so happy to be here with you today, the start of our Family Wellness Challenge. So let me just make sure, because I'm trying to make it so it's not backwards for you guys. Hopefully my head's not cut off like it was last time I tried to not do it backwards. Because today we are going to get started, and I'm so happy we've had so many people join us. I think we had over 100 families who have already signed up, and more are signing up today, and you still have a chance to sign up. You don't have to already have gotten your family ready. You can go and get your free guide and calendar right now. So go to drchristinahibbert.com and you can find your free family wellness guide and calendar that will get your family started. And today we are going to start our strategy sessions. Now, I actually did 3 strategy sessions over the weekend, the past 3 days, and those were kind of our intro sessions, if you will. Those were our intro sessions, getting us going before we really jumped into the challenge. And now that we're starting with day 1, today is our first strategy session for the challenge now that we've started. And what we're going to be doing every day here live, Coco? Shh. Sorry, my dog came in here and she's making noise. What we're going to be doing every day here live, see, Coco. Bah. Anyway, sorry, this is just life. This is just how it is. It's a holiday, and of course the kids are all home, and they're still sleeping. They're probably going to come in and interrupt and be awake as soon as I start talking. But anyway, the dog has decided to do that. So, as I was saying, we're going to be doing strategy sessions every morning, and these strategy sessions are really going to be helpful. These are going to teach you actual skills and tools you can use to overcome the challenges you face as you're trying to set your goals and keep your goals. I know how hard it is to set and actually achieve and keep goals, especially when you're trying to help your whole family do it. You might have seen my family live last night. If you didn't, you can go find it on IGTV or on my Facebook page. It was a hot mess, yes, for sure. Trying to get my family on board, and that was just half the family. The other 3 kids are older, and I'm trying to get them on board too in all different locations. But boy, it's tough. It's hard to sit there, even if you know what you're trying to do, and to explain it and to answer all their questions and to help everybody get on track with all their goals. But we did it, and we are set, and we've got our calendars ready to go. So use the tools in the guide and the calendar to help you set things up. And then let me know your questions as we go. I wanted to start with a bang, and you can say, I'm happy, I'm excited, I hope you are too. I'm really thrilled because I actually saw this morning my husband's calendar was on the mirror in his bathroom, and he was already working on it, and I've already checked off one of my goals for the day, and the kids all have their calendars hanging in their room. So I'm really just hoping that for you and for me and for all of us, that we see some really positive changes. Just the fact that we've got our family trying to be on the same page, working on similar goals, learning along the way, because, last night setting it up, my kids are like, well, what's the difference between emotional and mental? It's like, well, that's a good question. There's a lot of overlap. Let me talk about that a little bit. And so they're learning, and we're learning, and we're pushing ourselves. So even if we don't totally achieve everything, it's still a win-win-win for everybody, because we are all trying to grow and achieve and overcome, become, and flourish, as I say, right? So today, like I said, we are starting with a bang. And the thing that kept coming to me as the most important is our mindset. Now, mindset is a bit of a buzzword right now. It's kind of a popular topic. It's one, I have a whole chapter about mindset in my Mastery of Motherhood book that's going to be coming out in about a year still. But I've got some really exciting news about my Mastery of Motherhood program that's going to be coming out in a couple months. So stay tuned for that. But the mindset is so key when we are trying to make any kind of change, or when we're trying to just become the best we can be, to overcome the challenges, to become who we're meant to be, and to flourish in our lives. If our mind and our beliefs and our thoughts are not on board and doing what they need to be doing, then we're out of luck. We're at a loss, right? It's no good. It doesn't work. So how can we change our mindset? How do we actually put the thoughts in that we want and believe them? Because a lot of times what happens is we teach our children to just be positive, right? Just be positive. And yes, it is great to be positive, But I can tell you right now that I have had many a client, in fact, just the other day, had a client who came in who is great at being positive, but this was missing. They're positive, but they're not really feeling it. So it becomes a coping tool to just turn everything negative into something positive, but you're never actually processing it. You're never actually dealing with it. And this is a huge, huge roadblock when we're talking about mental health, when we're talking about making change in our life and improving and self-development that I see all the time. So yes, it's great to be positive, but what I want to teach you today are the basic, really crucial and really, really useful skills of changing your mindset. And not only for you, but there's also a really awesome way to teach this to your children. So that's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about changing our thinking. Okay, great. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to start off with our thought record, okay? Now, you might have already learned to use a thought record, and if so, that is great. But I do want you to stick around because, like I said, I'm going to be teaching you a couple of extra things with the thought record. For instance, like how to change some of your beliefs and not just what you're thinking day to day and, on a random basis, but also how to teach this to your children. And this is really a cool method that we'll talk about in just a little bit. So to get us started, this is one of the best tools I've ever used for changing our thinking. And it's all based on the cognitive therapy idea of this cycle of our thoughts. Okay, so let me just explain the cycle of our thoughts. So let me teach you about the thought cycle, then we'll talk about the thought record. Then I will teach you how to teach this to your children in a way that they really, really will be able to understand. So here we have the cycle of thoughts and feelings and emotions. So if we think about this as a circle, we have up here our thoughts, okay? So the example I always use, that's just simple, is I'm in the forest and I see a bear, okay? And immediately I think, a bear. I need to do something. What am I gonna do, right? So I'm starting to think about the bear and what I'm gonna do. But immediately at the same time, we have an emotional response, right? We feel something at the same time. So in that example, I see the bear and almost immediately, and we can't really say like which comes first, and maybe sometimes it's one and sometimes it's the other. I feel fear, I feel panic, I feel anxiety, I feel stressed, right? And then at the almost exact same time too, we have our bodily response. And this is our body getting ready to usually fight or flight or freeze, right? These are kind of the ways that we deal with these stressful situations. So in this situation, I'm feeling fearful and stressed. My body gets ready to either fight or flee or fight, flight, or freeze, right? And we have a behavior, okay? So in this behavior, in this situation, I decide to run away from the bear, okay? So all of this happens, but then if you think about it, what happens next? This cycle continues. So if I was raised to believe that I am capable and strong and can handle anything, then maybe after I run away from the bear, I start to think things like, oh, good job. Wow, you really ran fast and you really totally outrun that bear. Now, just so you know, on a side note, I do realize that you're supposed to not run away from a bear because they will chase you and they can climb trees and all that. But just for the sake of this example, let's just say that's not the case. Okay, so I ran away and I'm praising myself in my head and I'm thinking positive thoughts and healthy and happy thoughts, and my emotions start to become more calm and happy and rejoicing, and I'm grateful, I'm feeling good, right? My body calms down, that parasympathetic nervous system kicks in after the sympathetic nervous system kicks in and calms me back down, and my behavior is I go and I reward myself with an ice cream cone because wow, look at me, I'm capable. I totally took care of myself today. I escaped a bear. But what if after the first cycle and I've escaped the bear, what if I was raised to believe that I was incapable, that I could never handle anything right, that I was afraid of everything and always ran away from my problems and everybody made fun of me about it? Maybe the next thoughts would be, gosh, you are such a wimp. You always run away from your problems. Everybody's right. It was just a baby bear. It wouldn't even hurt you. Like, what were you thinking? And my emotions would be even more stressed and depressed and sad and down on myself, right? And my body stays all worked up in that sympathetic mode where I'm having all that cortisol and stress hormones, and my behavior is I go punish myself by eating an entire carton of ice cream, right? So this is what we're talking about when we're talking about the thought cycle. And based on that, now we can talk about the thought record. And this is the way the thought record uses the thought cycle to change our thinking, okay? So here we go. Here's the thought record. Okay, so if we're using a thought record, and you can go to my website, drchristinahibbert.com, and type in thought management and find my thought management series that talks all about this, has some videos, and also has some free downloads of the thought records. You can also go to exercise for, number 4, mentalhealth.com. That's my exercise for mental health website. And the thought records are just right there. If you scroll down to the tools underneath, they're right there with the videos too. So either way, if you want to print off your own thought records. So if this is a thought record, okay, this is how we use it. There are some columns here, and I want to make sure that I'm not going to totally cut off all of the columns. I know. Okay, so let's start it right about here. So we have our date, situation, then we have automatic thoughts, and emotions, and then our rating. Now I'm cutting it off the other way. Okay, anyway, hopefully you can see most of that. Okay? Emotions and then rate. So here's how we do it. First, we just have the date. Okay, so what is the date of whatever's happening? Whenever you're feeling overwhelmed or stressed or depressed or anything negative or anything positive even, that's just a really big emotion, or you're really stressed, you're really having a hard time, or it's like even you could be really, really happy and go, wait a minute, why am I so happy today? You can even use a thought record for that. So in those situations, just write down the date. So, today's 11/12. The situation, you're just going to write a few words describing what's going on. So in the example that I gave you, like, met a bear. Okay, I guess we didn't really meet, but in the woods, blah, blah, blah. Okay, just whatever. I'm driving in traffic, someone cuts me off. I'm at home with my baby alone. She won't sleep, and it's driving me crazy, and I'm super tired. You don't even have to put all that, but just home alone with the baby, whatever it might be. Okay, so just briefly describe your situation, and then we start to list off the automatic thoughts. Now, the thoughts I say are automatic because they come automatically. These are those thoughts that we have estimated about 60,000 of these a day. That's what they say according to research. That's a lot of thoughts. So how do we keep track of all those thoughts? Well, the answer is we really don't. We don't pay attention to those thoughts. We don't hear all those thoughts. We don't know that all of those thoughts are there. So that's why they're automatic. They just come automatically. It's not like we're purposefully bringing these thoughts together. They're just there. And some of them we pay attention to and some of them we don't. But the difference is, even if we don't pay attention to the thoughts or hear them or know that they're there, they still cause that same cycle we just talked about. So it can still cause all of those unhealthy, unwanted, and untrue thoughts to start coming based on old patterns and habits if we are checking or even monitoring or being aware of our automatic thoughts. So we start to list these off like sentences. So in the example of meeting a bear, I met a bear in the woods. We said hello, we became friends. No, I saw a bear in the woods and it freaked me out. And so what was I thinking? Run away, run, you're gonna get eaten, right? Okay. But then also maybe I was thinking things like, you're always getting yourself into trouble. You should have listened to somebody else. They told you this would be a bad idea. You can't handle yourself, right? Almost always there's other thoughts beneath the first initial thoughts that we have that we start to get a little deeper, if you know what I mean, okay? So we want to try to identify as many as possible and just list them off like sentences. Then we want to start to list off the emotions. So the thoughts are the sentences, and the emotions are the one-word feelings that we feel. So we are, stressed, fearful, afraid, and then maybe later, because of the example that I gave, the first one, maybe down on myself, or the second one, because I really feel like I shouldn't have run away from the bear, and that really bothered me, that I did that, and I felt down on myself, okay? And then we rate how strong the emotions are. 10, and down on myself, like I was really pretty down on myself after, because I really felt like I could have handled that bear, and I'm always running away, and whatever it might be, okay? So this is what I call Thought Record Part 1. And again, you can find a copy of this all printed off for you and use those. There's also copies in my books, 8 Keys to Mental Health Through Exercise, and in my Who Am I Without You book. But it's easier to go to my website, drchristinahibbert.com, and get your own copy. Now, the cool thing about this is then once you do this, you not only get it on paper, okay? So we're not only, when we're using a thought record, we're not only, first of all, learning how to identify unhelpful, and I'm gonna write this down. So unhelpful, unhealthy, or untrue thoughts, okay? That's what we're looking for once we get this down. So first we're just trying to get it out of our head. We get it on paper. That's great. Or you can do it on your phone or device. You could even talk into, a recorder and do it however you want to do this. And then we get it on paper. We also are starting to identify what's a thought and what's a feeling. And how strongly are my feelings? So when I'm feeling stressed or afraid or down on myself, because almost always there's something like this. When I'm feeling this at a 9, what am I thinking? So what kinds of things am I telling myself that's maybe making this worse? Or every time I feel this way, what's going through my head? Okay, does that make sense? So that's kind of why this is so great, because it helps us tease apart the thoughts and the emotions. It gets it out of our head and onto paper or onto something, so that we can then go back later and look it over. And then we can add the final column. So I'm just going to rip this off. And we're going to show you the final column. So we have, again, the date, situation, automatic thoughts, I'll just write it, okay? And then our emotions. And this time, when you do part 2, this is Thought Record Part 2. That's really small, but there you go. Emotions, rate from 1 to 10. And then we have this whole last column, which I'm going to move over here, which is alternative thoughts. Okay? Alternative or rational thoughts. So this is why it's so cool, because once we have this first part all handled and figured out, once we have this all figured out, then we do part 2, and both of these are available for download through my websites. The Exercise for Mental Health website is a really easy way to get these. And then we start to be able to go, okay, what are my alternatives here? So let's just put this here. So if this is kind of what we had, and I was telling myself, you're going to get eaten, okay, that's probably true, so we don't need to change that thought. But what if I'm down on myself, telling myself, you can't handle anything? You can't handle your life, let's say. Well, is that true? Is that healthy? Is it helpful? So I'm going to, again, write that. Is it true? Is it healthy? Is it helpful? And if it's not one of these 3 things, and sometimes even if it is, it might be true, but it's not necessarily healthy or helpful. Sometimes we tell ourselves things like, gosh, I totally failed. I totally failed at that. And that might be true. Like, we did totally fail at that. But what's not true or healthy or helpful is all the other stuff that goes along with that. And because I failed, that means that I'm worthless, right? Well, that's not true. And that's not healthy, and it's certainly not helpful. And it's definitely not helpful to just let that thought be in our head, even if it is true that I'm a failure. I keep failing. I can't, even if we have failed a lot, we just need to change some of those things. The other cool thing about this with finding the alternative thoughts is you can also identify beliefs and start to change and change and find alternatives for your beliefs. And that's where this gets super, super powerful, and where I love doing this with clients is they bring these thought records to me and they have all of these, automatic thoughts. And usually, honestly, if you really get down to it, when you're really, really having intense emotions that are negative, almost always there's an element of negative self-worth in there. Some kind of self-judgment, self-criticism, self-loathing sometimes, that's really at the core. And when we get down to that, it's kind of like what I say is like a theme that we have, and it becomes a belief that we have and we hold. And a lot of it is this: I'm not good enough, right? Or I'm unlovable, or I can't handle my life, or I can't control myself, or I'll never change, right? All of these things. So if we have something like this that comes up and we start to say, hey, that's kind of a theme for you, and this is what I do in therapy, and you can do this with your families, with yourself, is go, oh my gosh, look at how much I'm telling myself I'm no good, or I can't handle it, or I'm just no good at life, right? And then we can challenge it. Is it true? Well, that can't be true because it's totally absolute. Absolutes are never true. I'm not good enough. Well, how can you prove that? Okay, so it's not true. Is it healthy? Obviously not healthy. Is it helpful? Definitely not helpful. So what's the alternative? And instead of saying I'm not good enough, we can say, sometimes I feel like I'm not good enough. That's totally different from saying I'm not good enough. Okay, in your own head, when you're saying these things to yourself, they become powerful and they change that whole cycle and lead to all those other things we were talking about earlier. So I'm not good enough can become, sometimes I feel like I'm not good enough, but I'm working on it. I'm trying to love myself, or I'm working on loving myself today by X or Y or Z, right? And there's so many ways that we can change this to be more helpful, healthy, or true. It doesn't have to just be a total flip from negative to positive. So instead of saying I am good enough, I'm totally good enough, which can be helpful sometimes, but really it's most helpful when we believe it's true. The problem is a lot of times we try to do that. We flip something negative into a positive and we don't believe it's true. And then, it doesn't really do us much good because we're not really in that place of that mindset where we actually do believe it's true. Does that make sense? I hope that's kind of making sense. Let me see. I don't think there are any questions so far, so we're good. Okay, awesome. Thank you. Okay, so with this in mind, now let me tell you how to do this for kids, okay? This is really, really cool. I'm just going to use our little whiteboard here. Apologize for the glare. But for children, this is awesome because it's the same kind of thing. But what we can teach kids is using that same idea of that thought cycle that we were talking about earlier. We can teach children how to identify their negative thoughts by explaining them as, here you get to see my fabulous skills as an artist. I am not an artist at all. All my kids are artistic, and my husband, but not me. Okay? Butterflies. Okay, that's a butterfly, in case you couldn't tell. I'm probably making it worse by drawing all these things on it. So what we can teach our kids is that there are two kinds of thoughts. There are, okay, this is really bad, but, okay, he wouldn't have two eyes there. Okay, so this is a caterpillar, believe it or not, okay? So there's caterpillar thoughts and then the butterfly thoughts. So all we do is we take the same ideas we just were talking about with the thought record, and we teach them about the caterpillars. And the caterpillars are the thoughts that crawl in our head and our brains, and they just eat away at us, and they just bother us, and they bug us, literally. They're caterpillars, right? And they are so annoying, and they won't stop, and they don't lead to any good, and they just crawl around and cause all kinds of trouble in there. So I remember teaching this to my kids when they were little, and just asking, when they were being negative or, had a lot of stress or things like that, I would ask, okay, what are the caterpillar thoughts right now? And they'd be able to say, the caterpillar thoughts are that my friends mean to me and they don't like me and I feel like nobody likes me, and okay, that's okay, good. It's good to identify those, and we can even write them down if you want. You could write them down or have them write down what they're thinking in a very simplified manner or what kinds of thoughts. But it's really easy for them to understand this idea of caterpillars crawling around. And then what if we could make the caterpillar into a butterfly, right? Isn't this cool? So what if we could change the caterpillar into a butterfly? What would happen if we had butterflies thoughts? What do butterflies do? They fly away and they go and do amazing things and they look beautiful and they're happy, right? So we teach the children to take these negative caterpillar thoughts and to try to make a butterfly thought. Very simple, right? So what if the caterpillar thought is, nobody likes me? Okay, nobody likes you? Okay, I know that you had a really rough day today, and I know that your friends have not been very kind to you lately, and it's really, really hard. But you know what? I know there are people that like you. I remember so-and-so, and I know she likes you, and I know there are other kids that would want to be your friend. So what's a butterfly thought we could change? Instead of nobody likes you, then what? Well, maybe, Jennifer likes me, and, maybe I could think about trying to be her friend, right? That's a butterfly thought. Well, good, okay, because that makes us do something. Like a butterfly, not just crawling around on our head like a caterpillar, but actually getting out, becoming, and pushing ourselves in the right ways is the butterfly thought. Isn't that cool? I just love that idea for teaching kids. So a couple of last minute thoughts on mindset, okay? So if you use these tools, or even if you don't, and you're still struggling with your mindset, you really might benefit from talking to somebody else about it. Now, that could be something like professional help and therapy, but I mean also just like sit down with a friend or a family member and just get some perspective, okay? It really helps. This is why a lot of times when clients bring their thought records to me, and they've had a really hard time identifying some of those negative thoughts or the mindset challenges that have been holding them back. And when we're talking about mindset, that's why this is so helpful for that, because we really are talking about your thoughts and your beliefs, and then the way that you're positioning them in your mind, right? So after you do the thought records that we've been talking about, like here's again the example of the thought record part 2, after we've changed some of these alternative thoughts, then we have to work to actually put them into our mindset, right? Not just have them there on the paper, but actually actively try to create a new script so that we can have a new way to see things. Excuse me. So for example, one of my old scripts, one of my negative thoughts that I've had over years and years, and I actually identified it first time when I very first learned how to do this kind of cognitive behavioral therapy and thought records, is I would always tell myself, and still sometimes do, is like, oh, I can't handle this, I'm gonna freak out. Like I just get overwhelmed with my life and my kids and everything, and then I just feel stressed and I really just want a break. But I heard myself saying that one day when I was doing the laundry. My kids were little and I was in graduate school, and I was able to stop and change my mindset because I knew about this and I was practicing this. That's the power of this, is being able to stop and go, okay, wait a minute, what can't you handle right now? You're saying you can't handle this, you're gonna freak out. Well, what can't you handle? You're doing the laundry. Well, okay, and are you gonna freak out? Do you have to freak out? No, absolutely not. That's a choice, isn't it? So why do you feel like you're gonna freak out, and what can we do about that? I guess I'm gonna move this. And really what I was trying to say to myself was, I'm tired, I want a nap. My kids aren't home, my husband's off with them, taking care of them, and I actually could have a break, and instead I'm doing laundry. I don't want to do laundry. So then you have a choice. You can change what you're doing, you can change your mindset. So then it's, instead of thinking, okay, I'm gonna freak out and I'm overwhelmed and all of this, my mindset is, I need a break. I'm gonna take a break. And then you do that, and what power that is. It's such power. So think about how you could change your mindset from, feeling overwhelmed or stressed or depressed by things in your life or experiences that you've been going through, and how you can work when you go through this whole process how you can change that because you've proven to yourself that what you're saying to yourself isn't true. It isn't healthy. It isn't helpful. And when we prove to ourselves that it's not true or healthy or helpful, then we have power, because then we don't want to keep telling ourselves those things. That doesn't mean we're never going to think the negative thought again. Doesn't mean our mindset isn't going to be down the tubes sometimes. It definitely is. But it means we're going to recognize it much more quickly and easily. And for our kids too. When they know they have a lot of caterpillars going around, they can feel that. They know. And then they're going to grow up knowing when they need to identify those negative thoughts and then how to change them into butterfly thoughts, right? This is so powerful. So when it comes to mindset, learn these skills and then teach your family and work together and help each other, because when you help each other, you really do have that extra input. And as I was beginning to say and forgot to say, having someone help you go through it. When I have clients bring in their thought records and they've been challenged by it, when I sit there and listen to them talk, I can easily write down the thoughts that they're saying. I can easily hear what they're saying, but it's hard for us sometimes. So you can do that with your child. You can do that with your partner or spouse. You can do that with a sibling or friend, right? Or you can have them do that for you. And then our last little point on mindset. It really is up to you. It really is up to you. So you have to choose to change that mindset. And using these skills can be very helpful to get your mind in the right place and to know how to change those thoughts. But you ultimately have to be the one to put those there. So just about a couple months ago, my son left on a mission for our church. And it was so hard when he left. And we're not going to see him for 2 years. We email once a week and that's it. And he and I are very close. And it was very, very hard for me. And I remember, just crying that night and just feeling like, I'm just depressed. Just leave me alone. Nobody talk to me. And then, going to my exercise class the next day and feeling the same way and just being in that class and thinking, okay, what's your mindset right now? Your mindset is that poor me, right? Poor me. We do that all the time. Poor me. Is that really serving you? Is it helpful? Is it healthy? Is it true? No, it's not. Any of those things. So as I'm doing my exercise class, and it was bar class, and it was super hard, and so, I'm having to kind of remind myself, like, I can do all things through Christ, or, repeating scriptures, or I can do this, right? Any of those messages. And then it transferred from just doing the exercise into, that was my new mindset. You know what? I can do this. He's doing his mission. I'm going to do mine. And it actually gave me power to do more of what I'm doing in my work and to really get out there and do it in a bigger way. And that's a new mindset for me. So this is the power of mindset. I hope this has been helpful. And thank you. Hi, Deborah. Hi, Brittany. And everybody else who's tuned in and everybody else who will tune in later. I'm so grateful that you're doing the challenge. I hope these sessions are helpful. Please feel free to comment or DM me with any questions or email me. And if you haven't already joined the challenge, go to drchristinahibbert.com, find the 10-day wellness challenge icon, click, and you can download the guide and the calendar and get your family going like ours is going today for day 1. Woo-hoo! So we still have time to get other people on board. So let's do this. And tomorrow I'll be back to talk about some other really important skills. I've got so many. We're going to talk about in the next 10 days, we're going to talk about how to process deep and powerful feelings, how to actually sit with things like fear and panic and to let it go through you instead of trying to avoid it. We're going to talk about that and how do you teach your family to do that. We're going to talk about mindfulness, and I'm going to teach you some really incredible, simple mindful practices that you can do. We're going to talk about meditation and how to do that, how to actually have stillness and rest and quiet and peace in your life, and some of the best strategies I know for that, including a little bit of, well, I won't tell you. Anyway, it's a surprise, but lots of really great tools. These are all the things that I teach in my clinical practice every day when I see my clients. Well, I don't go in every day, but when I see my clients, this is what I'm teaching and what I'm trying to teach my own family. And now I hope you can teach yours too. All right, everybody, you go out and make a great day, and we will see you tomorrow for day 2 of our challenge. I hope it goes well, and please let me know how it's going for your families. Please just let me know. DM, email, comment, whatever it is, and I will see you soon. Bye, everybody. Oh, hi, OJ Hibbert. Hi, bye, dear. I'm wrapping up. You're too late.